good morning, you reply good morning, and we go our separate ways. The first time I did that in the background, I car and I just expected a car and I thought I would be on my way. Oh, no. This person stops me, mommy call, daddy call, and it went on and on and on. And then I realized that, hey, I'm in a really traditional setting here. You don't just say a car and buzz off. No, it's not acceptable. You've got to go through, and then there are prayers, and pray that you go and come back safely and all that. It's all part of the duty. And then that's when I began to realize that there's been something missing in my education for a long time. And then the awareness started from there. And just to let Akin know, at that point I worked with the French at the French Institute for Research in Africa, IFRA. I was a librarian there. It was based, or is still based there, in the Institute of African Studies, where one of the things they did was traditional medicine. So my interaction at that point, I began to see the importance of traditional medicine. Mind you, it wasn't tackled in a very scientific way, which is what I am advocating. We must treat herbal medicine. It's not something we should leave to quacks. This is the situation right now. It's something that the government must see to set up an institute or something to do proper research, fund the research, so that we can come up with drugs and proper. I'll tell you a story. My brother used to have malaria quite a lot in those days. Luckily, he's in lockdown now, he doesn't have to worry about that. But one day, my mom, they tried all the drugs there. And then my mom said, okay, let's try traditional medicine. And so, interestingly, it was an American woman who gave her the dogoyaro to give to my brother. And then my mom said, okay, what's the dosage? Does he drink 2 cups of this, or is it 4 cups, or is it 1 cup? And she said, oh, you should just drink it as much as he likes. And my mom said, you know what? I don't understand this kind of medicine that has no dosage. It's either 1 cup, 2 cups, she understands that. And that was how she said, oh, I better not give off on the stuff. I don't understand this at all. And this is the point. We know it works, but what are the properties? How should we be taken? This is what needs to be researched. We don't just drink things that we don't know the properties for which we have no clue. So that's just a very short explanation.
Okay, all right. There's a question here that I actually want. I mean, I have one, but there's a question from one of the people listening in. He's also an old friend of yours. Kongi Adesokan, you must remember that individual. I'm sure you know who that is. So he has a question, which is, how did you go about the research for the government in this book? I mean, in terms of, of course, he told, especially Yaduni, who is so is it from life, or is it documented?
Research, I mean, I can't say I did research, except as I said, I was based at the Institute of African Studies, where I did some research into traditional medicine. I read some of the papers, because they did have conferences and so on. I read some of the papers that came out of the conferences. And I think once or twice Babalaos came around, and I remember one of them tried to come and make rain. It didn't quite rain that day. So, yeah, so I had some contact, if you like, with these people just by being in that environment. I didn't really, and I observed, I'm a very keen observer, and this is something I say to people. It's really unusual to have me talk. Usually I'm sitting there and listening. Very rarely do I sit here and talk. So I'm usually listening to people. I'm not just listening. One of the things I enjoy doing is observing people. And even as I'm sitting here, I'm observing people. And I love observing people because it's when you observe people that you see all sorts of things going on. You read their mood, you read their reactions. It's interesting. And I love doing that a lot. And I realized because I've been doing that for so long, when I create my characters, I'm able to really get into my characters because I'm able to become that person because of having watched people over a long period of time. So that's the research.
Okay, another question, and this time from me. It has to do with the way in which you handle politics or political issues in this novel. Again, just with the whole notion of how you represented family issues, it's also unusual in Nigerian fiction. I mean, by Nigerian fiction, I mean contemporary Nigerian fiction. These novels that are published around the time that this novel came, which is to say that it's not an add-on. Usually, when you have a novel, it's like, okay, there's a particular story, but politics is just like put in there just for reasons. I mean, people have, we are all writers, we have individual approaches for how to adopt a fictional mode. But in this novel, I find that it's actually very integral, very, very complex, and very, from the point of view of a reader, I find it very satisfying. When I say it's integral, what I mean is that it is like a feature of character. That it is not just something that's happening in the background, but it's also built into the story through the character of Abike's husband, Tunde. And so I want you to share some insights about that, because I find that as Tunde gets drawn into politics, I mean, it also came out in the second excerpt you read, when Abike said that, oh, okay, you are so involved in politics and you let your family and all of that. At the same time, it's also a way of sort of looking at Tunde's character, especially in contrast to his old friend, Gbadebo. For those who don't know this, who haven't read this novel, it's about political, his ambition is about wanting to contest the local election. And the former person, the chair who was in that position, was an old friend. So what I'm trying to sort of work out is how you approach this topic, especially in relation to character. I mean, what are you trying to tell us about the character of the Nigerian politician on the one hand, and how do you make someone like Tunde negotiate that in terms of the tension within his family?
The reason we find it that it's well integrated into the story is because I went for grassroots politics. I didn't go for the tendency in many Nigerian novels is to talk about the political bigwigs and not look at what happens at the grassroots. And what happens in the novel is that I have a character, Tunde, who is interested in becoming the local government council chairman. The current chairman is dying, and the current chairman happened to be his friend, although they became rivals as they went to the same school, but somewhere along the line they became rivals because that one was not successful at anything he did. He became a medical doctor who was very well respected in the community, and also he was very helpful. He attended to a lot of people, he took care of their health, he was selfless, he was a selfless person. And this was a challenge for Tunde, who now thought, okay, I can be like that too. Unfortunately for Tunde, he teamed up with a very low-life politician. The book is called IT.
What?
It's called IT, and he is out to exploit. IT is really his perfidence. He's just, I mean, he's not somebody you want to know, really, but he's really the kind of politician who is out to get what he wants, who doesn't care how many lives are lost, doesn't care whose ox is involved, that kind of politician. And he's really a very despicable. It's just not somebody Tunde ought to have been even talking to. But anyway, the year of politics is there. And what I do in the novel really is to reflect society. We are all here, and some of us may be interested in politics, some of us are onlookers, some of us just comment on what's happening, like with the American politics, you know. So in society, you have those who are the actors who really want to go there and do things, and then you have. But throughout my novel, what I do is to make sure that even my minor characters talk about politics, make reference to politics, and that's why Abike said, "Oh, you have no time for your children, but you are too busy running after politicians." So everybody is sort of interested in politics. But the two people who are really active in politics are Tunde and this ID, who is just a very, very, very horrible person. And that's the way I tackle. And as in any family, you see, you cannot divorce fiction from reality, because what happens in a family is that people are interested in politics, they talk about politics at home. If the man is interested in politics, his wife may not be interested, but she still follows what is going on, and she can use it to hit at him at some point. You know, so that's the way I tackle politics in the novel, and that's why it seems to be integrated, because it's not a separate activity. It's part of what happens within the family and society.
Thank you. One other question. I mean, I can go on and on, but I want to ask this, and I think I've said this before in private conversation. What is it with Nisheko? Yeah, the location, the setting of the novel. I mean, it just sort of jumped out to me when I saw it, and it reminded me of a passage in My Life in the Bush of Ghosts, when when the character named his son, he called his son Okolebamidele. You know, I mean, I don't know whether you remember that passage. I thought that was so. I mean, from the point of view of fiction, it was really extremely uh, what do you have, very, very stunning. I was, wow, okay, interesting. Isheku, so what were you thinking? What's the plan against Lagos?
Well, just for those who haven't read the novel, my novel is set in Kinsheku, not Lagos. And but it's somewhere quite close to Lagos in the suburbs. And I think that I already discussed this with Akin. I was at a forum like this once when listening as usual, and somebody said, "Oh, so and so has written a Lagos novel." And then I expected to hear more about this Lagos novel, and nothing was forthcoming. So I asked myself, what is a Lagos novel? Is it a setting, because it's set in Lagos, that makes it a Lagos novel? Or what? Is it because the characters are Lagosians that makes it a Lagos novel? What exactly is a Lagos novel? So I told myself when I was writing this, if I set this story in Lagos, then the type it in Lagos novel. I want my novel typed or labeled in that manner. I want people to focus on the story. Wherever it's set, that's what's important, the story. So I set it in Kinsheku, not Lagos, but also allow people to, I named it that so that in people's minds, they will still feel it's near Lagos. So it was I think a pretty clever way of talking about a suburb of Lagos without saying it was in Lagos or near Lagos. Yeah. But then I wanted, yeah, because there's too much fascination. Mind you, I better say this quickly because everybody's listening now and say, oh, she said she didn't want to write a Lagos novel. Because my next novel is actually about Lagos. So before I am accused of saying I didn't want to, anyway, that was the reason at this point. I wanted my readers to concentrate on the story and not worry about whether it's a Lagos novel or not.
Yeah, in fact, our colleague just added that it may be a metaphorical city. Yeah, in fact, it also has all the pathologies of many big cities in Lagos, like Lagos, for instance, broken homes, problems, and all of that. And I also thought that there's a passage in the novel where you are talking about some kind of opposition, land grabbing, especially maybe I think this was where the idea essentially to say that typical mega city or Lagos, for instance, is a place that's essentially controlled by, I mean, maybe this is being a bit political on my part, controlled by some powerful elements who are actually quick to say, okay, that land belongs to me. And they basically grab it. And so it's like the idea, what economists now call state capital, which is the idea of actually getting hold of a particular states or estates, so to speak, and then make it their own. And in fact, there's also a subtle critique of that kind of practice in the novel. And I was wondering whether you wanted to speak to that.
Yes. Well, the way I explain it in the novel, Kinshepo is right next to Lagos, and the people from Lagos, the big politicians, were coming to grab land there because they felt it was part of Lagos. And that's how the name arose, because the inhabitants, the indigenous of the place, said, this is not Lagos. And so they started protecting the land from the land grabbers from Lagos. And this is what happens in the novel. All the encroachment and so on, they had to fight off these land grabbers. And they started buying up the land. In fact, this is how Iya gets that large estate that belongs to her. It was to keep the land grabbers from Lagos out of Kinshepo. So the indigenous themselves began to buy up the land to protect the land from Lagos land grabbers.
One more question, a question about your sense of the reception of the novel in Nigeria. I know that it was not published by a Nigerian publisher. It was published by a digital publisher called Create Space. And so this, from my sense of how literature circulates now, is actually an opportunity. But at the same time, it's also a different thing when you can actually walk into a bookstore, say Glendora or Pataba or Roving Heights, and pick up a copy, or Wida Books in Ikeja, and pick up a novel, you know, in terms of, because, or even booksellers in Ibadan. So, and, you know, so in other words, book, so I'm asking some kind of double barrel question. On the one hand, how has the novel done in terms of its accessibility? That's number one. Number two is the question: how do you get it? How do you try to get it into people's hands in terms of actually people reading it? Because it's a novel that we've now made part of this conversation, but at the same time, it's a novel that other people need to be aware of. The same way they will be aware of any novel by a Nigerian writer, say Bubakar Ibrahim or Ayobami Adebayo, you know, I mean, because it came out around the same time. I'm just interested in how you make sure that this novel gets around.
Yeah. I think I'm asking myself the same question. This isn't my first novel, and let's just say I didn't fare well with the publisher of the first novel. And that's why I opted to publish on Amazon Kindle. Well, not because I didn't try publishers around here, but I tried agents abroad, of course. Didn't get any response from anyone. The real problem we have in this country is publishers not being honest. There's so much dishonesty. You sell an author's book, you do not declare the royalties. Or if you do, in some cases, where the publisher goes, you know yourself that this is not this is not what has been sold, this is not what is true. People say in Nigeria that books don't sell. That is not true. That is not true at all. Books sell. What happens is that the author doesn't get royalties. There are two separate things going on there. Books sell. You go to a bookshop, you supply them books, they sell off all the books. You don't find your books there when you go to check. The books are gone and sold. But do you get your money? So if you give 100 bookshops across Nigeria, they don't sell your books, but they all pocket the money. And this is the big problem. So writers write, publishers make all the money. I don't see the fairness in that at all. And so when I wrote this novel, I said to myself, if I give a Nigerian publisher, I'm going to get peanuts as usual, if I get anything. But if I put it on Amazon, I can be sure that whatever is sold will be given to me as royalties. My royalties will be given to me. And that has proved, that has proved to be the case. I did not bring a lot of sense, especially as I don't do a lot of promotion of my book. Yeah, but at least I'm satisfied that nobody is stealing from me. Because that's what publishers are doing when they sell off your books and they don't give you the royalties. They are stealing from the author. And that's just incumbent. So the question whether what am I going to do to get the book published here? Unless somebody here can recommend a publisher that will actually sell my book and give you the royalties, I really don't know what the answer to that question is. It's not to my advantage that the book is not being sold here. It's not to my advantage at all, because that's why nobody's read it around here. That's why nobody has read it around here. Akin is up, he's over there, and ordered the book from Amazon, and he was able to read it. Friends overseas have been able to do that and others. But over here, nobody. I mean, because it's ridiculous if you have to order a book from Amazon and get it delivered here. It's 3 times the cost of the book. It's who can afford it here? And that's why it's better for the book to be published here. But I can't go from the disappointment. That's it.
Okay, well, I mean, it's a struggle that we all have. Even, I mean, in fact, I don't know whether I mentioned this to you, but in some current writing that I'm doing, I'm actually reading a novel side by side with a novel by Ayiko, a Ghanaian writer, and who also, particularly, I mean, because of the same reason that you gave about what publishers writers, who essentially stopped publishing for something like 13 years and then began to find ways of establishing his own printing or publishing outfit in Dakar, in Popenguine, Dakar, Senegal. So it's interesting. You both have the same attitude towards this, and I mean, he didn't go the route of Amazon or Kindle. Essentially set up his own outfit and publishes his own books very well. Of course, you then have to know where the books are. You cannot go to Dakar, but they are accessible online from the website and buy them and then have them shipped to you. The irony, of course, is that not shipped to you from Dakar, but shipped to you from San Francisco. Maybe because I'm in the US. But it's interesting, I mean, especially because this actually tells a particular story between writers and publishers. And I guess that what I want to speak a bit more about is how, I mean, of course, it's a different, you've written the novel, right? It's not your business to now be selling your own book or getting people to say, okay, my book is here. But I'm just wondering whether you've considered having something like a soiree with a few writers. I know that you, Olaton Williams, and other writers in Lagos tend to get together, you know, so perhaps now that it's possible, do an event online or do an event that can be broadcast on Facebook, whether you've thought about that and what you think people can do to draw attention to that kind of event.
Well, I mean, that sounds to me, soirees, yes, that sounds, it's what the French used to do in those days. I don't know if they still have soirees these days. There was a lot of writers used to meet and discuss their writing and ideas. And I must say, I like the idea. It sounds like something one should explore and see if we can sort of band together and create an outlet for ourselves, which isn't a traditional kind of outlet, which doesn't have to do with publishers, but rather with book lovers, people who want to see books circulate, and for people, writers to benefit from their work. Because so far, I don't know any writer, who lives on their writing in this country. And yet, in other parts of the world, writers live on their writing. At least some writers, some writers. So that's a great idea. I think we should explore it.
All right. I'll ask one more question because I mean you've been here now for nearly an hour, and I know that it's actually over an hour. I know you are enjoying it.
Are you sure?
I can see that you are enjoying it. You're enjoying it so much that you're not even getting a drink of water, as far as I can see.
Actually, I do need water.
Or those people are they choosing to offer you water?
No.
Yeah, ask them for a glass of beer. I guess I'm just interested in what's going on now. I know, of course, that you work full time. Mama is in her 90s, and of course, she still has all her faculties, right? So we're not bored. But at the same time, in terms of another novel, writers write one, you say, oh, I must go on. So what's going on? What are you going on now?
Well, I'm keeping that close to my chest, but I'm writing sure that.
As I thought you would.
You know, that's the one that you know me too well. I've already mentioned it's a Lagos novel, I would say. And on this one, I agree it's a Lagos novel.
Oh, okay.
Lagos novel. And I look forward to finishing it sometime. I can't say when. You know, there have been so many distractions in Lagos. You know, the insights and all the uncertainties that went with that. And then the American elections, which
Wait, did they? Okay. Okay. For a while, I wasn't hearing anything, and I was just trying to wonder what was going on. So I didn't even catch the second part of your answer, but I heard
At
you.
what point did you lose me?
What? What did you say?
At what point did you lose me?
When you were talking about distractions in Lagos and SARS and all those things, that was the last I heard.
So I'm writing. I write all the time.
Okay.
But it's not easy when you have a full-time well. It's more or less full-time job at the same time.
Okay. Anyway, yeah, well, thank you. I was wondering where German was, or the on the ground coordinator, so we can have some kind of fine closure to this, in terms of if you have some final words about this novel. I mean, that's the last question I wanted to ask. So while German or whoever he designates is still coming around, if you want to sort of say something generally about this, especially in terms of how it relates to the theme, and what have you gotten from the experience in terms of basically just rounding off, some final words from you to give you the final word as always.
Okay. What I think is, I should say, very beautiful for accepting the moderate this
Anytime, of course.
And what I want to say is that we seem to be doing a lot of writing in this country. Many of us are producing, but we do not seem to be getting any feedback on our writing. And it looks like there's a gap of critics. Because a writer needs feedback. Otherwise, you just keep wondering who's reading, is anybody reading, is anybody interested in what I'm written, are there any comments? Well, I'm a bit fortunate because my mother is my critic, and she's a very positive too. So I read some. Is he still on? Yes, it is. It is. So I was just saying that we need critics to look at our works and so that we can get feedback. A writer only improves if there's criticism, and that is something that our counterparts in the West enjoy. They enjoy criticism. They say there's nothing like bad criticism. Every criticism, publicizes people. But here we just have silence most of the time. Just silence. You don't know you're right. You don't know what people think, what people feel. And I think for the writer, that's not good enough. So those of you who are critics, I know actually you are doing your own bit, but to the younger people, we meet critics at work when writing. So I'm not going on that note.
Okay, well, thank you very much. And I was just trying to send a note to handle called Galaxy Tab. I don't know who that is, but he or she just said that she enjoyed these and they enjoyed these, and I've also engaged extensively with the ENIITAN. So I don't know who that is, but it's Galaxy Tab A2NS. So one of your fans, I guess.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. It's good to see you.
We have some of our guests here, and I'm going to go into the reading and the question and answer. I'm going to take it's all opportunity for the class. We should run out because we have 15 minutes. So who wants to ask a question? You know, we're going to talk about then you have so we also go around the microphone of the microphone. One of the comments that while reading you were able to know every single character, and that's a strength. That shows that you have studied the characters very well. Make your research about their actions and reactions to what's going on around you. You will also master the relevance of each of those actions to place. It's a very comprehensive, not only in terms of what you know, but in terms of the approaches that you add to the book. And then the subteams that you can put politics, family life, blood planning, and the rest of it. The book is what I say that the Americans will say. It has its legs, family on the ground, it's down to earth, it's good. And I want to say that you should do as a people, most of us who like to read and study and research books that should make it available. And try and find a way to reach out to so that we can get it. I would have known the last time which one read this book before I came in here. But it's all right, I could have it, but I was still taking it. So beyond putting it out on the desk, also make some little efforts so that it's about to start writing that has also to society to start to expect will go to every single one, every single home, and get more feedback and improve from there. Congratulations, and thank you for this. My name is Akin Adesokan, and I want to ask you a question. One question, which might interest young writers out there. And the question is it just okay to write out of imagination or just do research towards the process that is loaded as part and it has a lot of different directions into it, politics, land grabbing, and all of the stuff. So how does research help to be able to constitute all of those things that you have in the book to the readers that will read the book?
All right, let me answer this. Well, thank you for your feedback. I'll do my best to get the book published here now that there are 6 to these solutions. To the second question, that was a comment. Your question, is it okay to write from your imagination? Yes, nothing wrong. It depends on what you are writing. Let me answer you that way. It depends on what you are writing. Some books you may write from imagination, purely from imagination. You see, writing, for instance, if you decide to create a fantasy world, for instance, that you can right from your imagination. You don't need any kind of research. What you really need then is your imagination more than anything else. Look at Harry Potter. That's a good example. That's a fantastic world. Lord of the Rings is another example. Fantastic world. You don't need to do any research, but you have to have a really big imagination. So it's okay to write from imagination. But then, if you want to write a book that reflects the society, then you have to understand that society to the best of your ability. You have to understand how people behave in that society, what their beliefs are, what the politics is, how they talk. Dialogue is very important. In this talk, I was very conscious of dialogue. I wanted to reflect. I remember I had this conversation with my mother, and she was asking me, do people really talk like that? I said, yes, they do. You see, when you can't blame my mother, she went to the University College when it was part of London University. She moved in Segun, and I tell her, look, your background and my background are quite different. You were, I would call her, they were like English people in those days. They were, brought up, went to school where missionaries taught, white missionaries. She went to the university, most of them were white lecturers. So she has a certain orientation. I said, when I went to school, they were Nigerian teachers. When I went to the university, they were mostly Nigerian lecturers. Your background and my background is so different. And so I listen to how people talk, and it's reflected in my notes. So the different strata of society, they talk differently. If you pay attention, the dad doesn't talk like the chief executive of a business. And so you cannot write the dialogue as if they are the same. That would be wrong. And so in my novel, I have area boys in my novel, for instance. They talk the way you expect area boys to talk. The house help talks the way you expect a person to talk. As people with not so much education. And so it goes up like that. So you have people who speak standard English, they talk, they are the middle class, and talk like that. And then we have ID, the politician I said is really is perfidious and everything. He even talks like he didn't go to school, he doesn't have much education, so he talks exactly the way you expect a politician who doesn't have much education to talk. And so that's what I'm trying to say. When you write, those are things that are important. So it's not so much research. I would say if you are going to write, observe, watch people, listen to people, and watch out for reaction. When two people are quarreling or fighting, don't just walk away, watch. See how they, yes.
Everyone, my name is Joshua, and I'd like to ask if there's any other that you have out there, you can
get is available to us here in Nigeria. That's the one has my best.
Okay. I really don't think so. My first novel, that's out of Britain, was written so many years ago. I have short stories in anthologies, children's stories, all over the place. I can't. Yeah, I'm trying to put together my short stories. Maybe that might be able, because they are all over the place right now. And it occurred to me that I should put them together. So that's what I'm trying to do. I think I have to work on how I get my books published here. It can be through the traditional publishers. It has to be some kind of initiative that allows the writer to monitor what is being done. As Akin suggested, maybe a soiree like this, and then you sell books there and you know what's going on. And maybe every quarter or something there. And it won't just be one writer, it will be several writers. I think we have to think of something like that that gets us away from the publisher who just publishes or takes all the money, and when he or she feels that, okay, let's send some details back, we have to get away from that, definitely. So, yes, I hear you. I hear you. Love.
Thank you very much. Hello? Someone just reminded me that this is this sort of so you guys have to speak up. Thank you very much. I think we have to engage again another time. What we do now is that we experience some friends while we like to drink your water, please. Because thank you very much for meeting this. It's been very engaging. We'll be back at 4 o'clock with the translators conference. With the orchestra for humanity. It is based on the 10 stars revolution that we just witnessed. And so we have Mr. Kongi in that session, which will be much to say. And
Mowunmi must drink beer before she leaves.
Oh, okay. So, and then at 5 o'clock, we have the translators conference. Then to give me the capital of the night of Kongi. There's a lot of talks and serious discussion here. We'd like to have something to launch about.
I wanted to quickly say, sorry, Jamal, that Olaton Williams, Mowunmi needs to know that Olaton Williams was here. He came. She was there. Yeah, she was the one who sent the saying that she put up a chat saying that, thanks for the book chats, which I also engaged with extensively. I didn't know she was the one because I was reading towards the end of the session that there was a speaker. Okay.
Tremendous work on book without like other books. They do a lot of work. It's not like that. Okay. Maybe she will join us later. So the an orchestra for humanity is at 4 o'clock, and it's curated and later writer, and you have Obioma Chigoze. His book actually informed the title of the book informed the title of that program. So also have Dr. and Academy. They will be there. 5 o'clock, we have a long list of translators who are going to hold the translators session. Session is posted by COLLOQUIUM, whom I'm sure you know about. graduates. In that same panel, we have Professor Adesokan, we have Dr. Aisha Adamu, we have Lashem, we have Akama. No, we have quite a long list of them. We'll be posting them on the site so people can see them. That will be answered in giving United comments just to unwind. Because tomorrow is Sunday and it's designated to NSAS. The NSAS movement, we want to visit, we want to know what have been going on with the NSAS movement. Before we need to narrative, already we're using the narrative. We want to see how it's going to happen. Thank you everyone who have joined us on Zoom and those who are in. Oh, thank you very much. I want to acknowledge two more people who are special features. And maybe the fire I came for suspended because we don't get any time for clients. The fire is on the green box by nature and because of the challenge of the set is suspended. So we'll be back there at 4. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Photograph. I think all the content of the photo. Volunteer, let's have a phone number. This. Okay. Michael. Thank you. We'll be back at 4.